Do you constantly question your own decisions? Do you ask everyone else what they think before you trust your own instincts, emotions, gut responses, your heart, your thoughts? Many people assume they lack confidence, but often the real issue is that trauma taught them to disconnect from their own inner knowing. In this episode, therapist Megan Soland and I explore how trauma impacts self trust, why neurodivergent individuals often experience this differently, and how reconnecting with yourself may be one of the most important parts of healing. Let's dive in and learn how you can get back in touch with who you are meant to be from the start. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Lunar Counseling Podcast. I'm your host, Kiara Brown, an LPC EMDR certified therapist, certified hypnotherapist, and the owner of Lunar Counseling. This podcast is a space for grounded, real conversations with therapists, healers, and guides for the deeper layers of mental health, trauma, embodiment, and what it truly means to heal in an integrated and sustainable way. Today, I'm excited to welcome Megan Soland to the podcast. Megan is a therapist, intuitive empath, and a private practice owner who specializes in working with neurodivergent individuals, navigating trauma healing, self worth, and reconnecting with their inner knowing. She's originally from Minnesota. She then moved to Portland, Oregon to pursue her master's in special mental health counseling with a focus on addictions at Lewis and Clark College, where she graduated in 2018. She began her career in community mental health before transitioning into group practice, and eventually building her own private practice where she now supports clients in a more personalized and integrative way. Her work is unique in that she blends traditional trauma informed therapy with spiritual and intuitive models. She incorporates tools such as human design, gene keys, and energy work to help clients deepen their self understanding, access their intuition, and move toward healing in a way that feels aligned and authentic to them. She's especially passionate about helping and neurodivergent individuals feel seen, supported, and empowered in their healing process, while also guiding clients to cultivate a stronger sense of self worth and trust in their inner voice. In addition to her therapy practice, she also offers human design mentorship through her platform, Soul Footing Guidance, where she helps individuals explore their energetic blueprints and live in more alignment with who they truly are. So, welcome, Megan. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you. It's so interesting to hear a whole bio said back to you. kind of fun. But yeah, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So let's ask everyone that what kind of like brought you into the therapy world.
Yeah, so I originally went to undergrad. I was starting to be a dietitian. I thought I was going to work with people with eating disorders, like on the dietitian side. And then I got into actual schooling around it and I was like, this is not for me. I still want to work with clients who have struggles like that, but this side is not for me. And then I got a job at a care home, working with people with a bunch of different kinds of disabilities. And then I was like, oh, this is it. Like this is the side of things that I want to work from, more of like the psychology. So then I switched my major to psychiatric rehab and substance abuse counseling. I wasn't sure I was going to be a therapist at that point, but just like through then taking classes on that side, I was like, oh, okay, like what's next? And then, yeah, I applied to Lewis and Clark because it had addictions, mental health, and eating disorder all wrapped up into one program.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, that's kind of the perfect thing. So yeah, then I moved to Oregon. But that's kind of the meandering path, I guess, to get into be a therapist.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like what was like your impetus for like wanting to even do the dietitian piece?
So I was a gymnast my whole life, pretty much from like 7 to I did it in college a little bit. Um, so eating disorders wise, I saw a lot of people struggle with that path, personally. And I just remember doing like book reports on eating disorder in gymnastics. Like there was something about it that was interesting to me, but also, yeah, where I was just fascinated by it and just saw a lot of friends affected by it. So I thought at the time, like, being a dietitian helping people through eating disorders would be cool. And I liked the idea of it. It was just like the actual practical part of it where I was like, this isn't for me. This it's so science based and very like numbers heavy in being a
Mhm.
dietitian. So I was just like, that it doesn't feel right. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where even the interest in eating disorders came from. And now I still work with people who have eating disorders. Um, I originally thought it was going to be like kind of the primary thing I worked with. And now like it is. I have a lot of clients who have eating disorders, but I've like branched out from there.
Wow, I just everything interesting about like, how like because I know with gymnastics, my kids are in doing gymnastics too, and like there is that like yeah to be thin and fit to do like all
Yeah.
these stunts and
Yeah.
like, that
Yeah.
pressure can be so hard.
I'm hoping coaching is getting better because like I just had a lot of coaches that were kind of colluding with some of those eating disorder early voices, right? Of like having kids change their body and that kind of thing. I also had coaches that were really supportive of like, we don't need you to be small, we need you to be strong, right? And like the like function of body being more important of like strength. But I also had coaches on the other side that were really focused on like, yeah, what they're eating and even making comments about bodies, right? And it's such a vulnerable time because most of the people that were struggling, it was around like puberty. So you're like
Oh,
going from before puberty body and gymnastics, which is like way easier because your center of gravity is one thing. And then you start going through puberty as a girl and you're like, everything's changing and how I do gymnastics is changing. And that's often when they would start like making comments and stuff. So yeah, just really tricky developmental times of life.
yeah,
And it always bothered me so much. I luckily had a mom who was like, no, that those messages are not coming in. But I had other friends where their parents were a little less protective. So they would have the stuff from coaches seep in a little bit. For me and my
mm,
mom, it made us angry, luckily. But for
yeah,
other people, they really like took it in and tried to do what they were being told. I was a little on the rebellious side, luckily.
yeah. And I think kind of like something that I like went to more of like your intuitive piece too. Like you were able to like
Mhm.
push back against like what you knew wasn't working for you. And
Yeah.
your body knew what it needed.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a huge thing I've been even kind of deconstructing as a therapist is a lot of, especially when you're in gymnastics in a very like serious way, like very competitive club gymnastics kind of way. A lot of it is like actually disconnecting from your body, like pushing through pain and almost having a really high pain tolerance. And so now as I'm doing intuitive work and I'm working with clients, like really a lot of my work is somatic based and energy based of like getting into our bodies. So it's just interesting that part of the path too, where I like came from such a disconnected place with my body to being like, okay, actually, I need to I need to do the work alongside everybody else because I work with a lot of people that feel disconnected. So
Yeah.
I gotta get connected. Yeah.
So what was like the moment in your life when you realized like, okay, I was tired of being so disconnected from myself and I want to get back to who I am.
Yeah, I feel like it started happening probably in undergrad. So like maybe around like 20-ish. And then the further removed I got from I should say, the further I got removed from the gymnastics world and identity that I was a part of, and the more I moved toward mental health and like learning how to tune in, it just got more and more clear that I needed to do that. I think I always had like an inner knowing that, you know, being disconnected from your body just to push through pain is like not a great thing. Um, but yeah, I think slowly kind of moving away from it was a big part of that. And then when I got to Portland, it's just such a different environment than Minnesota, even like openness of spirituality. I grew up in a Catholic home, Catholic life kind of. So the further I got removed from that too, I would say it's like those are connected probably too.
Yes, definitely. Like whenever you actually,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Catholicism at all, but it's like there's a different pressure with it than like actually being able to just be open and just experience life outside of the parameters.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I kind of think of like gymnastics and Catholicism are doing the same thing, which is like listen to someone outside of yourself to decide if you're okay. Where like my spirituality is very much not that, right? Like more toward we all have an inner knowing, we all know everything we need to know inside of ourselves. So yeah, there was a lot of need to like distance from that. And then even just see that there are other ways. Like I don't think I even heard about energy work until I was in Portland. And so I moved when I was 22. Yeah, right after undergrad into grad school. So I didn't even know those things existed or like what they were. I didn't know what Reiki was. Like some of the things that I'm really into now, I just didn't even like have access to.
Yeah. So what's so yeah, you mentioned human design, which I mean, I love human design. As I'm
Mhm.
talking, I have my human design book like right next to me.
Yeah.
I have the Gene Keys and the other human design book too, which is in my other room. But I love human design. So where was like your spark for it?
For human design. Yeah, I always try to think about that because it just feels so much like it plopped into my life and then everything was different after that.
Yeah.
um, Trying to think. I was in a really rough relationship. Um, in when would that have been? I think that ended in like 2022 or something like that. So I think it was like right around the end of that relationship where I started getting like I remember being like, "What's the dark night of the soul? This must be it." Right? Like, or what are some of these things? And I think once you start like searching for that, then there are other things that start to come in. Like almost like I think of it now as someone who believes in spirit guides and things like that, of like almost like a spirit guide guiding of like, hey, this'll help. Um, and then so for anyone who knows about human design, I'm a 4/6 splenic projector. So even learning that was huge. So yeah, it feels like human design like plopped into my life at the right time. And then I got like a human design reading to be like, okay, wait, I need someone to tell me what this is. Like, yeah. And then once I got the reading, then I was like, I need to know everybody's human design. Like, I am not just me. I want to know my family. I want to know everyone. And then, yeah, it just started becoming like something I don't know, I felt like I was almost like eating it up. Like a fascination I couldn't put down. And then it just evolved from there to doing like a human design reader training, which is like more than 30 hours long. And then I couldn't unsee it with what I was learning about what was happening with clients and like, spots that they were getting stuck or like, why is this client experiencing more fear than other clients? Or um, why is this client trying to like almost maybe seem like they're trying to hop on someone else's life path when they don't need to kind of thing. So it just started
Yeah.
putting everything into place. And now I think about it every day, all the time. It's like so much infused with my life now.
Yeah. That is so true. Like, I mean, I haven't, well, have a coach that I've been working with, and she's teaching me what she knows. And I had kind of like self taught with it. So I haven't
Mhm.
had like formal trainings with it, but it is so fascinating. I'm a 5'1" mental projector.
Uh,
So like, I have so many projectors on here, and it's just so fascinating.
yeah, there are so many projector therapists, which makes sense, right? Like
Yeah.
projectors are very much like guides and they help show people what they see. So it totally makes sense that a lot of us are in that guide seat,
Yeah.
but also really tricky when it comes to like the mental health field and what it even requires of you to be a therapist. Like I think about that a lot of 3 years of grad school plus practicums and internships, and you're like maybe trying to work while you're also doing free labor. And then when you get out of school, for me, I went into community mental health, which I don't regret at all. I loved every minute of it. The work part of it, like the client engagement part, but it required so much energy. And so now that I'm like there's so many projectors in the field. I'm like, oh man, we really have to basically go through burnout to get to it, to get to be the guide in like a formal setting. Intense.
Yeah, it is intense, and, like, you're 100% true. Like, I was at community mental health too, like, while I was doing grad school and
Hmm.
all, like, all this stuff, and then afterwards, it's a lot because, like, there is so
Yeah.
much pressure on us, and I think the interesting part too that as a projector is, like, we have to wait for the invitation too, which is
Yeah.
also, like, I think hard with as a business owner because as a business owner, like, you're supposed to put yourself out there a lot and just, like, kinda share it, but it's, like,
Hmm.
to wait for the invitation, so it's, like, this weird, like, push-pull of, like, what you're supposed to do in, like,
Yeah.
marketing terms versus, like, what our energy type needs us to do.
Yeah. Yeah. In the training that I took, there was a really helpful analogy of like that we as projectors, we are meant to build the lighthouse and then people come. So, kind of that place of like, in some ways, I think of owning a business as a really helpful part of that because you're like, I can just focus on what I'm doing over here. Like, I am interested in doing it this way. And as long as part of the lighthouse is being visible, right?
Yes.
It's like we have to make sure we're visible, especially as projectors, when a lot of us are like, have a hard time with being visible. And I find that with like most of the types, anything that you're meant to do, that once you actually start doing it, it does feel natural. But the like doing it, trying to do a part is really hard. Like for manifestors, right? Like they're supposed to inform, and
Yeah.
most manifestors are like, I don't want to. No. Um, so it's just so interesting. But then once manifestors start doing it, and then everything starts like aligning for them, they're like, okay, yep, that is easier. But we kind of have like the resistance to the thing that we need. I think that's just human, but it
Yeah,
shows up so clearly in human design for sure.
it does. So when you're working with your clients and you're pulling in the human design piece, how do you help them, like, understand, like, the conditioning that they've had from childhood to condition them out of being who they're meant to be?
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. And I always pull in the amount of human design that someone is comfortable with. Like, I have some clients where, like, they love it. It's really exciting to them. So then we really pull in a lot of it versus other clients where it's kind of just like a background informer kind of. Um, but yeah, especially because I usually always start with kind of like traditional therapy intake or, like learning about them through more the therapy side. And then as they're doing that, I'm usually like, oh, okay. I'm looking at their chart and I'm like, that makes sense. And then I'm just really, this is kind of where the intuitive part comes in of just really having it be the right timing to bring certain things in. But I see that so much where it's like, yeah, the trauma that someone went through or their childhood was like a perfect setup for that thing to be at its lowest expression or for that thing to be really hard. And where they're like, healing through trauma means they're probably going to live their design more fully. They very much go together. It just, I've noticed that using human design with therapy, it's just kind of, it's brought a new depth to the work that I do. And I really like doing like deep work with people. So it's brought a lot of depth to it, but it also almost, especially when people are really traumatized, almost gives them something to come back to. Because
Yeah.
before I found human design, I feel like a lot of people would be almost like nervous to heal from their trauma because then they're like, who am I? Like, I've built my whole life on these negative beliefs about myself, or I've tried to control my life in a certain way. So if you take the foundational stuff and re-heal the beliefs, like, who am I? I'm scared that there's nothing there, that like I was only trauma, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where I feel like human design gives us so like, hey, you have been you the whole time. It's just like, I always think of it as like, we're actually just taking all the clay that people plopped onto you and tried to sculpt and like make you think you should do something a certain way, or this was the belief you have to have. And we're actually just like pulling the clay off and realizing you were a fully formed human underneath all the time, the whole time that you didn't actually need people to plop the clay on you. we just have so much generational conditioning to plop clay on kids.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I found it to be really bringing people a lot of comfort where it's like, "Oh, there I am." Where it's less scary when they're pulling away the trauma to be like, "I'm actually gonna be okay when I don't have these trauma beliefs anymore."
Yeah. Because then they're like, they know who they are, who they were meant to be outside of like
Mhm.
all that stuff. And I can like
Yeah,
be like, no, I'm healing to be who I was meant to be all along outside
yeah,
of X, Y, and Z.
yeah. Yeah, exactly, and the ripple of it is so cool, like, when people learn how to accept themselves, even from an energetic place, it just has such a ripple, like, especially the people I work with who are parents and that kinda thing, they're like, "Oh my gosh," like, it just opens up a whole new world about how we're all different and how we're meant to work together and where we maybe don't need to like pressure other people to be like us or vice versa. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is so helpful in kind of all the different relationships we have.
Yeah. That is so true. Like, and earlier that you have a kid yourself, both of my kids are, well, my daughter is a manifesting generator. My son is a generator. And they're,
Mhm.
and my husband's also a manifesting generator. And all three of them, their authorities is emotional. And it's like,
Uh,
all of that all the
yeah,
time. I'll be a projector. I'm like, okay, cool. So, but I know how to handle it because I know like I've learned more about the projector piece of
yeah,
it and what
yeah,
they need. And it makes it, I don't say easier, but I can understand it more. There's sometimes
yeah,
where it's like, it's just
totally.
harder.
Yeah, because my husband is a 6-2 manifesting generator emotional authority, and my daughter is a 1 through manifesting generator emotional authority. But yeah, that has helped me so much. Like, especially when it just feels like something's off, like in the air, where you're like, like someone's feeling something intense. I know, okay, it's not mine. Um, because I don't have emotional authority. So just knowing those dynamics, like you said, it helps so much just to bring like a little bit of clarity to even what's going on and to not take it on. Like I work with a lot of clients who have like emotional or open solar plexuses. Like, okay, we need to clear out other people's
Hmm.
emotions. Like, we're meant to touch them and feel them and be empathic about them, but we're not meant to like absorb them and try to make sense of them and like swim in them.
Yeah.
And how would we know that they're not ours? Like I always think of my child self being like plopped all this emotion on and then of course we think it's ours because we're not taught that like emotions could be other people's.
Yeah.
So I just feel for all the inner childs of us who have been like absorbing other people's stuff without even realizing it, thinking it's ours, and it's not. It's very freeing to realize that a lot of the stuff that we take on is not ours.
Yeah. That is so true. Cause, and it's also, I feel like it allows people just know like they can focus on themselves. And even like,
Mhm.
even though it might sound selfish, but it's not because as long as we're living through our highest expression, and
Mhm.
living the way our according to our design, then the whole people around us will fall into line in their own
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's kind of like a more gentle way of having boundaries because they're almost like energetic boundaries where we don't need to be having to even explain them to people, but it's more just like, no, I've decided, like, I'm not taking that on, but in a very like kind, loving way. Like, I can touch it, but I'm not gonna, yeah, flow into it.
Yeah. Um, so the clients you generally work with, are you working mainly with adults or do you work with kids at all too?
Yeah, I mostly work with adults. I've worked with kids 14 and up at some various points of my career, but mostly I've worked with adults and I've done couples a little bit, but I always come back to adults 18 and up. And most of my clients are, I would say, between like 18 and 40, but I have had clients go much higher than that. Yeah, I just keep gravitating back. And at the same time, I feel like I'm always working with the inner child inside of each person. So I'm like, I feel like I'm working with all of our inner childs at the same time, but in an adult body. And I do like to work with people who have been through trauma, usually in developmental years. So a lot of child abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, that kind of thing is where most of my clients hang out. And then I also do a lot of grief work with people. I've had a lot of clients lose one of their parents young.
Mm,
Um, and that just kind of happened, which I always think is interesting as a therapist. You sometimes just get like a theme that you're like, oh, I didn't even call that theme in, but there must be something there about that. Yeah, interesting.
yeah. So can you talk about a little bit like of your evolution with from like your original niche to like your current niche with people?
Yeah, well, in community mental health, probably like you've experienced, you kind of work with everyone and
Yeah.
anything, which I actually really liked. I feel like it gave me a lot of really good experience with a lot of different things. So there's benefit to that. And then maybe also like, are we actually serving people properly if we're just trying to do everything? Um, but I would say my niche has always been trauma. It just has gotten more niche down to like developmental trauma. Um, but ever since grad school, I took like one class was on trauma, and I was like, whoa, the reading about trauma and like reading about some of the interpersonal neurobiology stuff. And it just made so much sense to me that this is at the root of so many people's everything. Um, so shame and trauma just became like a really kind of like the frame I saw everything through. And I took that into community mental health. And then, yeah, just started getting a little more specific on, I would say it's not even like the niche of the topic, but more where people are ready to go. Like I started to realize I didn't really want to work with people who didn't want to go into like processing healing at kind of a deeper level. And I think there are other people who like working on the other side where people are like, I don't really want to go there, but I also want things to get better. Um, like I really like doing EMDR and I like doing more of the processing part.
Yeah.
So that became kind of more of my niche. And people who are just I work with a lot of people who have done a lot of therapy, like they've done a lot of talk therapy or they've done a lot of um like they have a lot of tools. They have a lot of the resourcing. So
Yeah.
I don't hang out with people in the resourcing as much as I used to. I will when it's needed, but yeah, people are kind of at that next phase of like, no, I have the resources, so I'm ready to kind of go to these deeper spots, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So I like how you said like you see so much of it through like the trauma lens because you're right. Like everyone has trauma in some fashion because
Hmm.
obviously parents don't know what they don't know until they have kids and it brings up all their own stuff.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the kids get the brunt of it and it's awful, but hard to get people to get help if they're ready for it.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, and I feel like we've come such a long way. Like I think of, a lot of the clients that I'm working with, they were raised in such a different generation of even like access to information where now, you know, I, I'm sure you experience this as a parent, but me as a parent where I'm like, I can Google a question about her mental well-being that like our parents couldn't just Google a question, right? Like they could find the answer. So we won't let them all the way off the hook. But it took a lot more work for my parents to find information about how to be a good parent, where like there's just so many books and there's just easier access points. And I find myself being so grateful for that now because I feel like we're so much more able to break patterns that like would have taken them awareness to know they even need to break it, but also like having to hustle for information and like we're in just
yeah,
such a different time.
you have to go to the library, actually find the book, or go to a bookstore to find a book.
Yeah. And even know what book you need, right? With Google
Yeah,
or search engines, you could be like, this is the problem. I don't have the solution. Like, I don't know even where to look, but there's so much more resources.
yeah. But yes, that's really true. Like we do have a lot, and once they have done so much more research too about trauma and how it
Hmm.
affects kids, and noticing like when our own things come up and how like okay, so this was my issue. I don't want to put it on to my kids,
Hmm.
and Like knowing, okay, so when we need to would know when we need to take a step back, like, okay, I need to deal
Yeah.
with this thing before I can even address it with them.
Yeah, for sure.
So the parents that you have for clients, how do they respond whenever you tell them like about how like their trauma could be affecting their kids?
I think a lot of it is the kind of ancestral generational, even like psychoeducation of like, of course you did when this is passed down and like we can't know what we don't know. But once we know, it's our job to do something different. So I think that's huge where it's like more the empowerment of like, you're changing it now and that matters. It doesn't really matter how old your kids are, like changing it now still matters. So kind of more focusing on that piece of like, even the fact that you're aware of it now, there's still time to repair. Because I think that has maybe been, maybe it's like the whiteness of it all and the colonial aspect of it, but like needing more room for repair is so important. And that there's room for that, right? There's room for parents, let's say their kid's 10, for them to be like, I didn't know a bunch of stuff before now, but now I do. And it actually starts repairing things from earlier. Kind of like that thing of healing goes backwards and forwards at the same time all the time. Like if a parent can acknowledge wrongdoing from the first 10 years, it's actually going to start healing the story of the 10-year-old because they're like, oh, it wasn't me, it was you. Got it. Good. I don't have to hold that anymore then. Or like I can integrate that. So I feel like that piece is big, that there has to be more room for repair. Cause otherwise we'll find people in the like, never mind then. Like if I already messed them up, whatever, and not want to like dig into it
Yeah.
versus that place of like, and I truly believe like even just one person changing ripples and changes everything. So yeah, try to hold both, like validate and hold the like, of course you repeated patterns, and also we're not gonna moving forward, or like you're gonna up level your patterns because we're always gonna repeat something. I always think of that. Like we can all work really hard and there's still gonna be something
Yeah.
that we don't do right because how could we do everything right? And that's not even the goal. If we try to be too perfect, that's also a problem. So
Yeah.
really going for like the good enough parenting vibe.
And kinda like you said, like, knowing, like, the repair, like, if you have, like, an issue where, like, there's a rupture, making sure you go back and, like, repair, but, like, saying you're sorry for yelling at the kid, saying, like, "This was it's like mommy's thing. Mommy was, like, really overwhelmed that day, and I took it out on you, and I shouldn't have,"
Mhm.
or something, whatever this situation was, and
Yeah.
being able to, like, go ahead and, like, take ownership. And that also teaches the kids too, like, so whenever I mess up, I can take ownership too, and, like, everything can be
Yeah.
repaired better versus, like, just holding this shame and guilt for no
Mhm.
reason.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I hold a lot of room for repair because I mean a lot of what keeps trauma stuck is shame. People already feel bad enough already usually about what they've done, almost to the point where they can't grow from it. You know, if you think you're bad, it's hard for you to do things that move you different. So where there's responsibility sometimes, right? Working with people, there's like a you gotta take a little more ownership of that thing, but I feel like that with the people I work with, it's more on the other side where it's like, we need to give you a little bit of a break because you're being really hard on yourself, and that's actually not helping anyone. Like, it's not actually helpful for your kids that you're shameful. We gotta move into growth mindset a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, it's, like, definitely a balance, yeah, like, you definitely obviously take ownership of your actions, but don't let it become like, "Well, I did this one thing bad, so I'm always gonna be a bad mom, dad, whatever." Like, no,
Yeah.
like, you made a mistake, own
Mhm.
it, apologize, try again better the next day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Um, it's just so cool. Um, whenever do you ever, like, pull in, like, the whole family constellation of their designs, so you're working with them, or how do you usually do it?
Sometimes when it feels like it's gonna be really helpful, um, I will do that. And at the same time, I'm kind of under the framework of if we all know our own designs really well, we automatically will be supportive to the other person's design. Like I really think of this in parenting. Like if I know where my shadow parts are and I know where my lowest expression is and I keep that in check, I will automatically like ripple more helpful to my daughter and she will be more her own design. I do find it helpful at times just when there's like certain differences or like recently I had a client where like we learned that their daughter was a manifester, which manifestors are only 7% of the population. So like that's such a different energy than the parent in question. So like that actually was really helpful for them. I try not to go like too deep into the other person's because I feel like sometimes then it becomes their focus where they're like, I need to learn my kids things so that I can make sure they're okay. When it's like the way you can make sure they're okay is you living yours. And I truly believe that, right? Like we
Yeah.
all like our kids in human design language, it's like we choose our own design. Like we already know what design we're gonna be before we come here. And so like, for example, my daughter chose her design knowing what mine was. And they're meant to interact with each other in a certain way. Like I'm meant to teach her things. She's meant to teach me things. Um, so that kind of helps me to like kind of bring people back to their own because we can do more about our own, right? It's like it's really
Yeah.
helpful to be informed on the other, but I also don't want parents to get like too into it to the point where they're like are not paying attention to their own, which can happen, I think, in parenting in general of like, how do we fix the kid instead of like, how do I make sure I'm okay and then they will be okay?
Yeah. And I don't think it's good to like know like the basics of like the other types. Like if they're not if
Yeah.
like they're not yours. So like, you can like help them if they get stuck. Like you're right, like knowing who we are and like what our design was meant to be and how like that those nuances play a part in our lives. And like especially
Yeah.
like seeing the shadow parts because if those are like all the time and like in the open, then our highest expression isn't there. We need to get
Yeah.
the shadows to actually go back. The shadow
Yeah.
could not be all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. And human design is interesting in the way of like, if people only knew their strategy, authority, and type, so much would change just in that, right? Like if you just knew that you were, in my case, a splenic projector, that alone tells you so much information and it kind of has a ripple effect in your own chart. Like when you're listening, again, my case, I'm listening to my spleen and I'm waiting for the invitation and I'm resting enough and all of that kind of stuff. All my other gifts happen. Or like all the other things in my chart move to highest expression. So I do tend to start with people there where it's like you said, even if you just knew that about your kid and then yours and how those interact together, that is so huge. And there are helpful parts of the chart to know, but it's almost like if people need like a basic starting point, I feel like just knowing those pieces can make such a big impact just by itself.
Yeah, that is so true. Um, how have you noticed? Like, how would I say this? Sorry, totally got no problem. I had it last with it. Whenever you're working with someone that's like not a projector, and like you try to like help them like notice like how to be working with the other energy types. What's your go-to like tip or trick that you give them?
Interesting question. Let me think. Well, I think coming from a projector is always interesting because we see how everything moves. Like, especially, human design is like one of my fascination areas. So it becomes the thing I see very clearly. So I'm kind of giving people feedback from a very like empathic, intuitive place. Um, and helping them feel it. Like, for example, if someone is learning how to use their sacral authority, part of how I might do that is like ask them yes and no questions to start getting their body to read it. Like, or kind of doing basic things like, okay, go to your closet, and look at this shirt. Do we want to wear that shirt? Listen to it, right? It might be like something really basic, but starting to get people to start hearing it, because with the sacral, right? If it's a yes, it's like a it's like an expansion or excitement. It's like a moving toward. And if it's like a not really or I don't really care, it's kind of either like a pullback or like a eh. So helping people hear that and maybe even amplify their voice. So really kind of teaching people their strategy, but in an experiential way. Like, let's give you some examples of how this actually works. Same with like manifestors. If they're like really struggling with informing, like, let's give you some experiential moments of actually informing and seeing how it actually benefits you, like seeing what happens. Almost giving people like little experiment time.
Yeah.
Like, can you give yourself 24 hours to inform like crazy and just see how the world works for you? Right. Or like, again, sacral authority. If you give yourself 24 hours to say, to really just listen to your yeses and nos, and maybe do it on a low pressure day that's a weekend where like no one needs anything from you, and you just have a yes and no day with yourself, and you only do stuff that's a yes and you don't do stuff that's a no, and just see what happens. Most of the time, clients are like, you would not believe who I ran into at this coffee shop. And I'm like, I would believe it because that's your magnetism.
Yeah.
And with projectors, it might be like, only work for 4 hours and literally lay down the rest of the time and just like chill. And maybe people don't need anything from you for a little bit and you just chill and see how much inspiration you have, or see how much creativity you have, or how much time you have for your fascinations. And then that is where the invites come from, right? It's like, I'm meandering off, but for projectors, it's like the biggest thing about waiting for the invitation is we have to recognize ourselves first.
Hmm.
Same within our businesses, right? Like, we have to know that we're good at what we're doing, and we have to be excited about the offer that we're offering in order for anyone else to be excited about it, or for anyone else to be inviting us in, which kind of helps because then we're not focused outside of ourselves to be like, will someone invite me? It's like, I love this thing. I'm fascinated by this thing. So I would say like experimenting is a big part of it. Like giving people little tidbits of low pressure to practice with it. And usually people have a lot of buy-in after that. It's like, okay, that 24 hours made a really big difference, or it just felt a different way.
Yeah. Because they were like in touch with who they were supposed to be and like able to like listen to their bodies finally for like the first time in a really long time,
Mhm. Yeah.
probably. And I do that something similar to some other clients. Like, I have quite a bit that are splenic authorities.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, so one of them, a lot of them, like, I want you to just like, whenever you go shopping, if you get like an instant, like, yes, this is the thing I want to buy, do that.
Hmm.
Because it's like
Yeah.
really low pressure. It's not a big deal. Like, if you don't buy it, you don't buy it. If you buy it, obviously it's something that you wanted. And
Hmm.
then
Yeah.
then like, wow, it really made a difference. So it's like, you're right. Like, the experiential piece is so huge.
Yeah. Cause I feel like with a lot of these things, they're so fun. Like human design and astrology, like they're so fun to learn about yourself through these things. And then I think sometimes we forget to like use them, like use them in our practical life, where human design really is meant to be like an experiential, lived, they call it an experiment. Like, it's really meant to be a life experiment that you do. And so that's another thing I do with people is like, especially if they already know their human design, is like how to live into it more. Like, let's drop it in. I guess this kind of circles back to like the being in your body piece of like helping people. And then there are some times where like trauma actually is making it difficult for people to listen to their sacral, right? Like, so much of our childhood trauma lives around the belly button and like pit of the stomach. So people are like, I actually don't know what I want. Like, I can't hear it. They're like, it's not giving me anything. So that also gives us a lot of clarity around like, okay, we need to do, in my case, I use EMDR, but like human design sometimes points out where the blocks are, where it's
Mhm.
like, okay, you can't feel what you want. And you're someone who like is meant to live based on what you want. we got to do something about that. And so knowing kind of exactly where that stuff is stuck and then coming back into lived experience, people start noticing in real time the trauma pieces that are healing. And not just from a going back in time to heal the trauma, but having new experiences where they're like, oh, I felt what I wanted. I am actually really excited about this. They start having like new experiences based on trusting themselves that again ripples forward and backward in time where they're like, I've noticed people have more insight around, oh yeah, there were actually things in my childhood that I had to block off. I couldn't get what I wanted. I couldn't even say what I wanted because it would have been really dangerous for me to say what I wanted. Where now they're giving themselves permission to be like, hey, actually, adult, you get to decide what you want. And then we can kind of tell inner child us, like, we get to get what we want now and we get to say what we want. And
Yeah.
just like how much of a ripple that can have. So I don't even know where we started with that one. I got lost.
No, it's yeah. I think it yeah, it all makes sense. He's like, right. We're talking about like the spiritual piece of it and how like getting in touch with our bodies and like our inner
Mhm.
authority. Like it's a whole life experience.
Yeah.
Which I think that's so amazing. I love that you have like all these different modalities of working with people. Um,
Mhm.
Before we wrap up, are there any other tips or tricks do you want to leave people with?
I think the biggest thing, and again, why human design has been so helpful in the therapy practice side. It's also cool to have like the mentorship side that's kind of all human design and all more of like a spiritual healing side versus like the therapy EMDR side that I have. But I think maybe the biggest thing is that we're not really meant to live in our head at all. Even when you're a mental projector, you like use it and then you go into your body to say what's yes or no, right? So I feel like that is such an interesting, maybe it's not even a tip or trick, but just like an interesting insight of where we're going is like to a place where we barely need our mind to make any decisions at all. Because there is not a single authority that you make your decision from your mind. And we're so taught to make every decision from our mind and like to make a pros and cons list and think about everything. And we don't really need that. So it's just more of a curiosity of where we're going to go as a collective. The more we learn how to use our like authority this way, because I think therapy is even going to change a bit. Like even a lot of therapy is kind of up in our head and like discussing things where like we make all our decisions from our body. So we really have to get tuned into our body. So more just like a interesting what's going to happen together kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I love that too. And you're right, because a lot more therapists are moving more into like the somatic therapies and realizing like
Hmm.
bodies needs to be integrated. And you're right, like so the mental projector is also called the environmental one too. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
I
Mental slash environmental. Yeah.
yeah. So it's really like I do look around my environment and like have it affect my body and then the make decisions based on that. So it definitely yeah, like that thing is really just fully in our head.
Yeah. It's like the only authority where you use it more, like you listen to your thoughts a little bit more, but like there are other types, other authorities where like even keeping thoughts inside of our head get really spinny and loopy and not helpful. So, yeah, just
Yeah.
interesting where we're going to go the more that we learn some of these things and ground them in. And like you said, I don't think human design is the only tool. It's just a really helpful tool for that. But there's so many more tools that are like a dropping down into our body thing that I feel like we're all getting the intuitive nudges. Not that talking isn't important, because I think it can be really cathartic to share with someone who is non-judgmental and there for you. It just is like, it has to be both. I think we're
Yeah.
getting to the place where it's like, it all has to be both for it to feel the most soul quenching.
Yeah. Actually, I had a consult call before this, like earlier today, and as we're talking, they're saying how they've had so many talk therapies and they felt like it wasn't really working for them. I was like, well, I don't just do talk therapy. I do EMDR and do hypnotherapy, and
Hmm.
we can really get you back in touch with your body. And like, oh, that's really cool. So it's like
Yeah.
recognizing like it's not just all verbal, and also like if someone doesn't have a connection to their throat in their chart, expressing their emotions is still really hard for them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. This is so cool. How do you prefer people to get in touch with you for like either therapy or like just the human design consult stuff?
Yeah, as far as I'm on TikTok and Instagram, but as far as like if people want to work with me, my website is usually the best. So ultraviolet trauma counseling is the therapy side, and I'm in Oregon and Washington for clients. So on the therapy side, that's who I can see, and then I also do some training for clinicians every once in a while on human design and like learning how to use human design in therapy. And then on the soul footing guidance side, it's soulfootingguidance.com. And that's for people anywhere. They don't have to be in those states who are really into human design, want to use it. It's not the only tool over there, but it's a pretty primary tool. So usually people have to either be interested in human design or nerd out on it in some way to do the mentorship side.
That's super cool. Thank you so much, Megan. All your links will be below in the description too for people to like really click on and check out who you are. Um,
Awesome.
but if any of you have any comments or questions for Megan, you can put them in the bottom of the video or email her directly or get into her website and she can answer any of your questions. And she's very knowledgeable. So get in touch with her.
Thank you.
But thank you all for hanging out with us today and look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Thank you all for taking your time to listen to today's episode. If today's conversation resonated with you and looking for support on your own healing journey, I'm Kiara Brown, LPC, Unit Certified Therapist, Certified Hypnotherapist, and the owner of Lunar Counseling. I provide virtual therapy for adults in Pennsylvania, Vermont, Florida, and South Carolina, specializing in trauma, anxiety, EMDR, hypnotherapy, and therapy intensives. You can learn more at my website, lunar-counseling.com, or schedule a consultation through the link below. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode next Friday. Don't forget, if you want to stay in the know of when the next episode is live, hit the subscribe or follow button down below, and you'll be notified when the new episode goes live in your time zone.